حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله علي الذات عظيم الصفات سميع السمات كبير الشان جليل القدر رفيع الذكر مطاع الأمر جليل البرهان ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له في الخلق والأمر ونشهد أن سيدنا وشفيعنا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد. فقد قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل اللهم مالك الملك تؤتي الملك من تشاء وتنزع الملك ممن تشاء وتعز من تشاء وتذل من تشاء بيدك الخير إنك على كل شيء قدير. وقال الله تعالى إن الذين آمنوا والذين هادوا والصابئين والنصارى والمجوس والذين أشركوا إن الله يفصل بينهم يوم القيامة إن الله على كل شيء شهيد. فقد قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لو كان النبي بعدي لكان عمر أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. My dear respected brothers, sisters, elders, beloved students, youngsters in Islam, it's a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all praises for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator, the fashioner, the one who gives hidayah to who he wills, the one who misguides who he wills, the one in which the creation and the commandments of the heavens and the earth all rely on his existence, the one who is independent while all creation is dependent, the one that is himself unique, none like him, none came from him, none come from him. He is the light of the heavens and the earth. And peace and salutations be upon the final messenger, beloved Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his Ahl Bayt, all his companions, all that follow him with sincerity. And peace and blessings and salutations be upon all of the prophets that came before him, who preached the kalima la ilaha illallah with consistency. There was no deviation in what they said. They fulfilled their missions in conveying the message of Tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to all their nations. And we are grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity to be here and to worship Him and to recognize Him as the sole creator of the heavens and the earth, and that He gave us the ni'mah and the blessing of Iman, that He gave us the ni'mah and the blessing of Islam, that He gave us the guidance in the Holy Furqan, in the Quran, that is the distinguish between what is right and what is wrong. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that this Quran is shifa, it is a cure for all those ailments, physically, spiritually, morally, ethically, societally. All the cures are in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, this is hudal linnas, this is guidance for all of mankind. How blessed are we as Muslims who have submitted our will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam submitted his will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and became known as the Khalid, as the close confidant, the one that is very near as a friend to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how blessed are we that we come from the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas, that we are the best of the people that have been taken out from the people, because we do ta'muruna bil ma'rufi wa tanhawna 'anil munkari wa tu'minuna billah. We invite people towards good, we invite people towards justice. We do not make normalized things that are abhorrent, those things that are abnormal. We do never allow those things to become something that is normalized in society. We will always look at the things that are good as good, respecting one another, sweetness of the tongue, speaking to each other with kindness, having mercy on each other, having respect for elders, mercy on youngsters, treating women with respect and dignity and honor, protecting ourselves from the evils and the temptations and the indecent acts and the shameful and immodest acts and those things which are deemed inappropriate universally by human beings, such as the spilling of innocent blood, especially of the women and the children. These things we will always preach against, and that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that we are the best of the people from amongst the people, and that also it is not enough just to say that that thing is wrong or this thing is good to do, but we also believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the condition that is attached to this command of doing righteousness that will make us from the best of people, and we are grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has made us from those people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has given us many examples in this world about what righteousness looks like, what it looks like to be truly someone who devotes themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how that impact changes and shapes the world that we know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave hidayah to who He willed. And amongst the people that He gave hidayah, He showed great examples of leadership in those people as well. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has misguided people and He has still given them leadership to show that what it looks like when misguidance takes over from the leadership. An example is very clearly in the Quran of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rabbi ghfirli wa habli mulkan la yanbaghi li ahadin min ba'di, that, oh Allah, forgive me of my shortcomings and bestow upon me, give me with an empire, with a kingdomship that is unrivaled like any other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then accepted this dua, وَحُشِرَ لِسُلَيْمَانَ جُنُودُهُ مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ وَالطَّيْرِ, that he was then given the commandment to dominion over the human beings and the jinn as well as the birds. And Allah Ta'ala gave him and his father Dawood alayhi salatu salam, He gave him mantiq al-tayri, that they were able to communicate with the animals and the birds. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed that these were ni'mal abd, these were the best of the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they were those that showed gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they submitted their wills to the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah Ta'ala even says that those two, the father and the son, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ عِلْمًا, we gave them knowledge, tremendous amount of knowledge. Then on the other side, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows the story of the Fir'aun, and the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the same kingdomship above the Nile River and of the most sophisticated civilization at the time in the Egyptians. And how when he was given the call of Islam, that he turned away from it. فَقُلْ هَلْ لَكَ إِلَىٰ أَن تَزَكَّىٰ وَهَدِيَكَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَتَخْشَىٰ فَرَاهُ الْآيَةُ الْكُبْرَىٰ فَكَذَّبَ وَعَصَىٰ ثُمَّ أَدْبَرَ يَسْعَىٰ فَحَشَرَ فَنَادَىٰ فَقَالَ أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَىٰ. That he denied the advice that came to him and ran from it and gathered all his people. And not only did he oppose the messenger, he opposed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he challenged Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after being given the advice to humble himself and said, I am the great Lord. He said that, أَلَيْسَ لِي مُلْكُ مِصْرَ وَهَذِهِ الْأَنْهَارُ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِي أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. Do you, my people, my subjects, do you not see that there's no other kingdom? I do not see there's any other kingdom in Misr besides me as your God. And that this river, the Nile, tajri min tahti, it runs underneath me. Do you not see? I control the Nile. This is the takabbur, istakbara. This was the takabbur he had, the pride. Then he said, Am ana khayru min hadha alladhi huwa mahin wa la yakadu yabin. I'm not better than, do you think I'm better? Or that person, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, who comes from the slave class. The children of Israel are the slaves of the people of Egypt. And he can't even speak properly. وَلَا يَكَادُ يُبِينُ. He has speech impairment. These were his arguments. فَأَخَذَهُ اللَّهُ نَكَلَ الْآخِرِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grabbed him with the worst punishment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed the Fir'aun. فَأَغْرَقْنَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says we drowned them all. We destroyed them all. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows on one side that when you have great power, do you submit yourself still to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It's possible. And this is actually a complete difference of ideology and philosophy that we have as Muslims as opposed to those that are philosophers of Western paradigm. They say that money and power changes a person. We don't say that. We say money and power exposes a person what's really in your heart. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Sahaba radhiyallahu ajma'in kingdom like no other. And that did not change the character of the men and the women. In fact, what it did was exemplify to the world when true tazkiyah and tarbiyah of the heart is done. When the purification of the heart is done truly. And the taqwa is rooted deeply in the heart, in the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, dictates a person's actions and agenda. Then it doesn't matter what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives that person in this world. A lot, a little. Wealth, name, fame, or complete anonymity. That person will act for the akhirat, which is khayru wa abqa, better and eternal than anything this dunya has. Today, again, we are seeing this. We keep seeing this. Where people with absolutely no moral compass, no ethical compass, no regard for life, sanctity of life, no regards for any sort of respect for, world affairs or humanitarian law, continue to act with impunity. We don't need to question why is this happening. We need to look at ourselves and say that how can we show the paradigm which will bring peace and harmony to this world? That example is with us many times over. But the example I will talk about today is probably related to one of the most impactful events in current history, in current affairs right now, today. The most impactful current affairs that's impacting everybody. And is the reason why, unfortunately, it's costing more money to come to the masjid for Jummah, which is the gasoline prices going up. That's because the issue in the Strait of Hormuz. Right? But what is the Strait of Hormuz and what is Hormuz? Hormuz actually, in the Persian literature, in the ancient Persian literature, it's actually a name that is combined with the ancient Persian religion of Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrians were people who used to fire worship. But before that, they were even more, ingrained in their own religious doctrine, which was about a duality, a bipolarism. It was an extreme conflict between light and darkness. It's a duality. It's a ilahain. It's two gods. And they worshipped a god, and the name was Mazda, Horul. And this is where this Hormuz comes from. During the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, before Hidayah of Islam came in this world, there was an empire in that area called the Sassanid. And these empires, they had ruled for hundreds of years. Before them, there were other Persian empires. But the Persian Empire is just as old as the Roman Empire, the one that we are living in today. Right? And we are, all these names, Memphis, Philadelphia, all these names of these cities are actually Roman names. In fact, the first universities built on the east coast of the United States, such as the University of Virginia, which was founded by Thomas Jefferson, it's modeled on the Pantheon, which was, a Roman pagan temple built by Marcus Agrippa, the general, under Augustus Caesar. We don't know this, but these are the facts. And all of these societies have always had conflicts with each other because those that chase this world are always chasing two things. They're chasing fame, wealth, power, but for one gain: fulfill the desires. Everyone's after the desires. Right? And to believe that ultimately they can all achieve which Fir'aun attempted to but could never achieve, which is, how can I become Rabbukum al-Ala fil ard? Na'uz billah. How can I become the great Lord on the earth? And then actually turn to the skies, because even Fir'aun turned to the skies. He said to his builder Haman, right, that build me sarhan li'alli ablugha asbab as-sama, that I want you to build me a tower so I can go find the God of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. This arrogance. This area has always been at the intersections of the Middle East, the Persians and the Romans. And the Romans always had Arabs that sided with them. These were known as the Ghassanid Arabs. And they had embraced Christianity. And on the other side were the pagans, the Lakhmids Arabs, that had sided with the Persians. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected Islam from all this because Islam was happening in Hijaz. But these people used to follow a religion called Zoroastrian. And amongst those people was a great Sahabi. His name was Hazrat Salman al-Farsi radhiallahu ta'ala anhu, who Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said loved so much that said that he is from my own family. That's how much love Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had for him. He himself started from one of these families. And this culture was such a culture that very sophisticated in terms of their administrative systems, just like the Roman Empire. They had riches, they had tremendous amount of wealth, they had, decadence, they had pleasures of this world. They had something that was called the rug, which was called the all seasons. It was a Persian rug that was so decorated and celebrated in such astonishment in its detail that you could say literally a football field long rug that was made out of the finest silk in the world, that had the finest gold embroidery in the world. And they used to take this rug out in the seasons when it was the summer and the spring came in. And they used to lay this rug out and they used to fill it with ornament and fake gold statues of deer and animals and plants, and fill those with gems. Can you imagine the amount of wealth and opulence that was done in this? And then they used to have a celebration, and they used to call this their paradise, their garden, their bagh. This is this type of leisures and pleasures they were enjoying. And they had this religious systems. They had a caste system. They had a system that forced people into a style of worship, of fire, and a priest system called the Magi. And this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about them in the Quran. They're called the Majusi people. Allah says, indeed, those people who believe, and the Jews and the Sabi'in, with the Sabi'in were also a type of agnostic people that lived in the area during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, out in the areas of Syria and Iraq borders. And the Christians, wal Nasara, wal Majusa, and the people who are the Magi, who are the Zoroastrians, وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا, and the people who associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَفْصِلُ بَيْنَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Allah will split them all up on the Day of Judgment. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَهِيدٌ. Allah is a witness on all these people. These people, with all their decadence, they still control the vast empire, and they preyed on their weak, and they enriched their elite, and they forced taxation on the wealthy. These are all things that we can take lessons from of what's happening in the world today. The elite were consistently becoming rich. The poor were indentured in servitude, and a type of serfdom that rivals today, where everyone will try to just pay their bills, and because of that, those people are exploited, and the people at the top are consistently making money. Somehow there is no money for the social services that are required to sustain those that are impoverished, those fakir, miskeen. Those don't exist. But somehow there's billions of dollars, billions of currency available for ruthless onslaught of people. This was the same system. And the people have become so sick and fed up with the system. But there's no change to the system when people don't have the proper guidance. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Islam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam preached the message of Islam, now a hidayah, a light in this world came. The rectification of humanity came. The final solution for all these plagues of empires and decadent governments and corruption came. And when Rasulullah passed away, the great companion and Khalifa Rasulullah, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiallahu anhu, he unified the entire Arabian Peninsula in 2.5 years. After him comes a man, Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radhiallahu anhu, who is considered one of the greatest human beings to ever live on this earth. Not just by the Muslim standards. That standard is by itself. Not by just Allah's standard, because Allah is the highest standard. But also even the enemies and the people who write, who are non-Muslim, also have the reverence for Umar ibn Khattab radhiallahu anhu. In the list of 100 greatest men, influential men, as written by Michael Hart, who was a PhD who did research on all this, number 1, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Actually, number 3 was Umar ibn Khattab, but then he was, in the newer edition, brought down to the 50th place of all human beings. So even those people respect Umar ibn Khattab radhiallahu anhu. Gibbons, in his work, The Decline and the Fall of the Roman Empire, writes about the greatness and the piety of Umar ibn Khattab radhiallahu anhu. Fred Donner, University of Chicago, historian on Islamic studies, Orientalist people, not Muslim, say that these people exhibited a type of piety that led them to lead this world. Umar ibn Khattab radhiallahu anhu mentioned in the Quran that 12 to 17 specific commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came down simultaneously with also the request and the desire in the heart of Umar ibn Khattab radhiallahu anhu for the Muslims, including the verses of hijab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the opportunity to oversee the fall and the liberation of the two corrupted empires of the time, the Romans and the Persians, and created what is known as the entire Khilafat of Iman. Umar ibn Khattab is mentioned in the Quran, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, in tattaqullaha yaj'al lakum furqan. Oh, you who believe, if you fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will make you furqan. And what is his title? Umar al-Faruq. Why? Justice. During his time, after Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiallahu anhu, the Muslims had advanced to a place called Qadisiyah. Qadisiyah was the main battle with the Persians at the time, and the Muslims had defeated them at this time. But there was a man at this time, his name was Hormuzan. And he was named after the same Hormuz Strait that we're talking about. Hormuzan was an elite Persian, aristocrat that was part of the armies of the Sassanids. And he was very loyal to this Persian empire because of his status. He fought in Qadisiyah, he lost in Qadisiyah, he made treaties with Sayyidina Sa'ad ibn Waqqas that he wouldn't attack the Muslims, but he continued to attack them. After he continuously attacked it, eventually the Muslims advanced to the edges of Iraq and Iran, in a place called Basra. Not the city of Basra that we know by Kufa, but a little bit further near the border of Iran. Over there, there's a city that's called Shahr Hormuz. It's called Shahr Hormuz, and this was actually the entry to the Strait of Hormuz. Muslims eventually started conquering this place too, and this man Hormuzan kept fleeing, killing Muslims, fleeing, fighting them, resisting them, even breaking treaties. Eventually, it came to the point where the last empire of the Persians, his name was Yazdajar III, he said that I need someone to stop these Arabs from expanding. They're taking over all of our lands. So this man, Hormuzan, said, if you make me a satrap is a type of noble vizier of the empire. He said, if you make me this, I'll fight these people. So they said, okay, fine. So he rallied the Persian people and gave them hopes of their ancestors and what they accomplished in the Stone Age and all these things, which they were a great empire at that time. And he gathered as many of these fire worshippers and polytheists and Zoroastrians as he could. And he mustered an army to fight against the Muslims. And that army that fought against him had some very famous companions, including Bara ibn Malik, who is the brother of Anas ibn Malik, Bara ibn Azib al-Ansari, who is the one who is very famously known for his descriptions of the Prophet ﷺ. This army was dispatched by Umar to go fight them. Eventually they fought. Many Muslims died in this, but they defeated the Persians, and Hormuzan was captured. It's a long story. It's a very beautiful story, but we don't have time for that. This is not also a history lecture. I'm here to talk about a specific point. My point is this. When this man Hormuzan was caught, he was then sent to Umar ibn Khattab anhu in Medina. Umar ibn Khattab anhu is ruling how many empires? Two different fronts. The Romans side, now he's controlling the Levant. He's starting to control the Egyptian, fertile lands of the Nile. And now he's conquered already Madain, Qadisiyah, and he has control of the majority of the Persians. Money, wealth is pouring into Medina. Medina is becoming a rich place where wealth can be distributed to the poor people. People are entering into Islam. This man comes from the aristocracy, from the opulence of the Persians. He comes and says, before we enter to meet the Amir al-Mu'mineen, let me dress myself up. So him and his companions of the Persians, they put on the finest gems. And Tabari writes about this, that finest gems, golden scimitar, robes of silk, everything to enter Medina and to meet the Amir al-Mu'mineen. What happens when he enters? He cannot find him. Where is the palace? Where is the castle? The name of Umar radhiyallahu anhu is spread around the world. Where is his palace? Where is his castle? And he finds him that he is taking qaylula, siesta, after Zohr Salat in the courtyard of the Masjid Nabawi with the Ashab al-Sufa, the poor people, sleeping. He sees him in amazement and says that this is the man that has conquered the Persian and the Roman Empire. Umar radhiyallahu anhu calls the interpreter and starts to ask him questions. He's told that you have been violating treaties, you have killed Muslim generals, and execution is something that you should be given. And the Muslims are cheering this on as well too. That yes, this man, he needs to be given capital punishment. But Umar radhiyallahu anhu before, because he's been taught by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's his teacher, that's his master, he tells him the da'wat of Islam. He gives him the da'wat of Islam. He tells him about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He tells him about the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But this man Hormuzan, he is not interested in this. And his companions are pushing for him to to execute with capital punishment. But Umar radhiyallahu anhu tells him to wait and give him time. And he keeps speaking to him and speaking to him. Eventually the conversation comes to a point. And he talked about many different things that are recorded in the books. It comes to a point where he says, okay, before you execute me, because I'm not going to accept this religion, and I'm not going to be under the Arabs. Then he said, give me a glass of water. At least I can finish this water before you execute me. So Umar radhiyallahu anhu says that's a request I'll honor. He said, okay, you won't execute me until I finish this glass of water. He said, yes. So he took the water and he dumped it in the earth. He said, you can't execute me now because you promised. So Umar radhiyallahu anhu is astonished at this, irrational logic. Then he says, after that Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, I take my shahada. He took shahada. Hormuzan took shahada there. And it made Umar radhiyallahu anhu very happy. And he said that bring him close, he will stay in Medina with me, and we'll give him a stipend. And next years, that happened in the 17th after Hijri. It was only a few years that Umar radhiyallahu anhu lived after that. It wasn't long. It was only maybe about 7 or 8 years before he was assassinated, before he was shaheed. In that time, he took a lot of counsel for Hormuzan on how to govern the empire. Because this man came from an empire. Right? When the Muslims came to Hazrat Sayyidina Umar radhiyallahu anhu and disputed over contracts. And some were coming in and saying, look, this person said he was going to pay me back this year. This person said he's going to pay me back after 2 full months. This person said after 2 years. But I haven't got payment. There was a lot of issues with management of the calendar. Umar radhiyallahu anhu was dealing with this administrative problem in his empire. Hormuzan was there with Umar radhiyallahu anhu. And he said to him, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, in the Persians, we fixed the calendar. We have a set timetable. And we based it on, our religious doctrines and the days. And that signifies the beginnings of the years. So you should do the same thing. So he said, we're not going to follow you, but we will set a calendar. And the date that we will set the calendar is the date that Rasulullah ﷺ made hijrah to Medina. And the month will stay Muharram because that's the first. And that is why we have the hijrah calendar. We have the hijrah calendar because a man who was taken as prisoner of war was shown as mercy, and he was then given dawah. He accepted Islam, and he gave tremendous benefit to the Muslims in the empire and contributed. This is how we governed. This is how we show morals and ethics. Our morals and ethics are not to bomb and kill people. Our morals and ethics are not to assassinate people. It's not to just run around this world and commit fasad, fitna, and mischief on this earth and think there's just no judgment, there's no questioning. La yusalu amma yaf'alu hum yus'alun. No one will question Allah. Allah will question everyone. The Persian Empire finished, but the culture remained and had tremendous influence on Islamic culture. The greatest scholars of Islam after the Sahaba, they came from Persia. They wrote tafsir, they discussed fiqh, they talked about aqidah, they recorded hadith. It was a center of learning. Islam doesn't eradicate culture, it removes the batil from the culture and it magnifies the good qualities of the cultures. So we live in a beautiful culture that has very good things. But unfortunately, it is being dominated by corruption and hideous and abhorrent things. What is the responsibility of you and me, my dear respected brother and sister? It is to demonstrate the right way. It is to wish the correct way of hidayah for the people. And to pray that the rectification of the people to the Quran and Sunnah come. Remember, we are well-wishers in this world. We are followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Inna arsalnaka shahido wa mubashshiro wa nazira. You give glad tidings before you warn them of the punishment. You invite them towards khair and good and Jannah. You invite them towards the forgiveness and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the corrections of their affair before they reach the point where there is no return, which is the death. And if they don't heed by that, then you warn them through the punishments and the azab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the sifat of the Muslim. That is the solutions to the problems. That is how Hazrat Umar radhiallahu anhu straightened Hormuz. That is our example as Muslims. That is who we are. And so we don't have to look at this moment in history in darkness and say that there's no solutions, there's no way out, what's going on. We need to say, we with confidence know how to get out of this. Let us start leading. And that's not going to happen until we start adopting the qualities of leadership in our communities, in ourselves. And that won't start until the Quran and Sunnah become something that is real and living in our lives. Not something that's just on the tongue. Not just prayer. Not just coming into the mosque. But serving the people. Showing akhlaq to the people. Integrity to the people. And bringing back the values and the morals and the ethical framework that we are supposed to adopt as Muslims. And that starts with silman qata'at, ati man haramak, aufu amman zalamak, wahsin man asa'u ilayk. Joining relationships with those that break it with you, forgiving those that oppress you, giving to the ones that doesn't give you, and being good to the people who are not good with you. This is the advice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Understand? May Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq to bring these things in our life. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور. نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله ما بعد فقد قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أرحم أمتي بأمتي أبو بكر وشدهم في أمر الله عمر واصدقهم حياء عثمان وقضاهم علي وفاطمة سيدة نساء أهل الجنة والحسن والحسين سيد شباب أهل الجنة والحمزة أسد الله وأسد رسولي اللهم اغفر للعباس وولده مغفرة ظاهرة وباطنة لا تغادر ذنبه الله في أصحابي لا تتخذوهم غرضا من بعدي فمن أحبهم فبحبي أحبهم ومن أبغضهم فببغضي أبغضهم وخير القرون قرني ثم الذين يلونهم ثم الذين يلونهم إن الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وسلم تسليما. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين، اللهم انصر المسلمين المستضعفين في كل مكان، اللهم انصرهم على عدوك وعدوهم، واخذل الكفرة والمبتدعة على المنافقين والمشركين. ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للقوم الظالمين ونجنا برحمتك من القوم الكافرين. عباد الله رحمكم الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. واذكروا الله يذكركم واشكروا على نعمته يزدكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
So, Safufakum, please make the line straight and fill in the gaps. Please silence the cell phones. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن. إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بالمهتدين. وإن عاقبتم فعاقبوا بمثل ما عوقبتم به ولئن صبرتم لهو خير للصابرين. واصبر وما صبرك إلا بالله ولا تحزن عليهم ولا تك في ضيق مما يمكرون. إن الله مع الذين اتقوا والذين هم محسنون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفر إنه كان توابا. الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.